Now, wizards, let's continue to look at social structure in ancient Egypt. After plugs were invented, farmers were able to produce more food than they needed to feed their families. Therefore, not everybody had to produce food. Some people could do jobs like making pottery, weaving, or leather work. These people could exchange pots or clothes and woven items for food from the farmers. As the population grew, it became necessary to have leaders or chiefs. They organized the extra food and looked after things such as the canals. Eventually, a strong leader was needed to become king of the Nile Delta area. This was the area closest to the sea. The Delta area was called Lower Egypt. There was also a king of Upper Egypt. The social structure in Egypt was made of different types of people. The king, to whom the farmers had to give the extra parts of their produce, crops, and livestock as a tax. Tax collectors and officials were employed by the king. They collected the tax from the farmers. Other officials organized things like the building and repair of irrigation canals. Also, farmers and skilled workers, because farmers produced more food than they needed. Not everybody needed to be a farmer. Some people became pottery makers or basket weavers. Now let's continue to look at belief and religion. Wizards, the ancient Egyptians believed in many gods. They also believed that the pharaohs were gods. Egyptians believed that they would go to another world when they died. This was called the afterlife. Osiris was the god of the afterlife. Skilled builders made grand tombs in preparation for the afterlife. These tombs were for the pharaohs and important people. For life after death, a person's body had to be preserved. It was done by using spices and chemicals before being put into a tomb. The tomb walls were painted with scenes of how the person lived life and still wanted to live after death. Inside the tomb were all the things a living person would want, like furniture, pottery, and jewelry, as well as clothes, food, and drinks. Pharaohs. Wizards, the ancient kings of Egypt were called pharaohs, because the Egyptians believed that the pharaohs were gods as well as men. Egypt had a centralized system of government under the pharaohs. Although not all pharaohs and dynasties were equally powerful, lots of people worked for the pharaohs, such as his servants and the government officials who collected the tax.